Welcome to Jessistories. This is an inclusive space where everyone's welcome. If this is your first time here, thanks so much for being here. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment in the video itself, and share with friends and family. Today I have Hannah that I'm interviewing. If you could introduce yourself and what you do.
Yeah, so my name's Hannah Stringer. Pronouns I use are she, her. I call myself kind of like a queer, like one-stop shop for creative things. And I've been creative my whole life, went to school for animation, kind of built up a lot of different experience with video editing, design, of course, animation and stuff. And throughout my career, I realized that, you know what? Let's uplift queer voices and utilize my skill set to help others. And especially now more than ever, we just need to keep on highlighting these voices, especially of our queer and trans communities.
We agree. Well, what do you do as a digital content creator?
Yeah, so I do a lot of everything. So I have a full-time, like 9 to 5 corporate job where I help with the streaming of high school sports. So a lot of that involves video editing, making graphics go in our game streams and in the features that we do to highlight our student athletes. And through that job, I've been able to gain that experience. And so now, like when I'm working with my one-on-one clients, I get to help them a lot with the web design aspect too, being able to showcase, their services so they can focus obviously on the businesses that they do and how they want to show up in their life. Social media graphics, since obviously social media is such a huge thing to get people aware, of your presence online. So helping to get graphics that are branded, for each individual and help them with that aspect. The videos, whether it's a YouTube video or like an Instagram reel, TikTok, anything that just really can bring the stuff that they have and present it in a way that best showcases them, their skills, their businesses, and kind of things like that. So, whether it's for those small things, not small things per se, but like from social media to YouTube channels to the stuff that I'm doing with my corporate job, it's just been fun to get to do a lot of different things from that digital content creation and be able to learn and grow. And then those skills I learn at the corporate job get pushed back right into my one-on-one clients. So it's kind of fun to have that kind of just flow of knowledge being able to share with others.
Just good to share that knowledge.
Yep.
And what made you pivot away from your business and what lessons were learned along the way?
Yeah, so I initially, when I knew I wanted to help, queer individuals, I came out later in life. I was 25, so still earlier than some, but later in life, too. And kind of my journey growing up in a religious household, realizing, my truth and my identity and everything, and everyone who helped me along my journey. So I'm like, you know what? I really want to also help others who are beginning their coming out journey. So my business initially started as coaching and being able to help other people show up authentically in ways that feel good to them. And I really enjoyed that, just one-on-one conversations, being able to hear other people's stories and the things that they're struggling with, because we can relate, as queer people, we go through a lot of the same things. Obviously, it's nuanced and differences based on situations, but really finding that community was so healing for me too, and helped me as well along with my journey. And, COVID happened and everybody's more online, and I kind of got like, fatigued a little bit from being on like Zoom all the time and being in contact. And then like I kind of just went inward too. And I had kind of lost my like creative self in a sense too over that time period, because my job went from being a lot of like creativity heavy, and then we lost some of our in like stadium things we were doing. So then I became a lot more like administrative and doing just like these tedious, repetitive things, which, fine, job security. But I kind of found that just things got heavier and just more, I don't know, less creative in my life. And so as I'm, trying to bring that back and like relighting that flame, I realized that I can do twofold. I can still help, fellow queer, whether it is business owners, creators, or just folks in general, with that coaching aspect, but bringing in more of my creative self. Because a lot of times I'm seeing people online who want to show up, but don't really know how and don't have maybe the time, energy, or skill set to show up in, those more quote unquote creative ways. Because I feel like we're all creative no matter what we're doing. It doesn't have to be, what we deem as art. So being able to build up and, relight that creative flame, share that with the other, queer business owners, and just kind of almost like a hybrid in a sense too, where I can still help them show up authentically online. But now it's also kind of that kind of like the mental part, like your mental health around showing up, especially now as well as the more tangible, assets that you have that you're putting out on the world. So it's been fun to kind of blend the two things together that I've been doing for the last decade, and really kind of show up in this way that not only helps others, but also recultivates my creative expression and being able to share that with the world and with other folks.
And what do you count as your creative expression, your personal creative expression?
Ooh, that's a good question. I find that I always like growing up in like through college when I was really focused on animation. I'm like, I'm gonna be a character animator at like Pixar, Disney, and like that was like my zero tunnel vision goal. And then I kind of fell into this role I have now where I'm the sole creative person at this small company. And so now I kind of feel like my creative expression is multiplied. Like it's like an abundant, like I like one day I'm gonna be doing like watercolor paintings, and that's what's feeding my creative expression that day. The other day, like I was just doing some doodling, some coloring in a coloring book because I was just getting stuff like out of my head and onto paper. I've been tapping back into animation. I've been learning some like interactive design, which has been a lot of fun just to kind of build upon like some past, the foundations of animation, learning some new programs and how like that all kind of, works with as technology grows and like the different landscape of things change. So it really is like this ever like just evolving and like organic flow of like whatever is bringing me joy at the moment. Like that's how I'm going to try to create and use that expression instead of I find that I myself is like, okay, I got to fit into one bucket, whether I am like I'm an animator and that's it. Nope. I'm a multi, passionate person, and it's time to embrace that and then share that and just follow the joy because we need more joy, in our lives, now more than ever. So I'm kind of using that mindset as a way to kind of re-tap in with that creative expression that I can share.
And queer joy is really important. But I'm
Yes.
curious about at least the animated portion. What
Mhm.
are you, because I'm actually working on an animated queer disabled series for kids for YouTube.
Oh, amazing.
And I've been looking into queer animators. I did look into yours a little more, but now I'm overly curious because you
Yep.
said you were working on the actual movement. So which part of
Mhm.
animation are you learning?
So I did a lot of like character animation like early on in my career. And with this current job I'm in, it's kind of moved into motion graphics, which is like really, I think, also character involved, but like I feel like a lot of like text and shapes and kind of you see that a lot in like advertising, whether it's ads you see on social or ads you see on TV. And some of the stuff I'm exploring now is kind of taking some of those elements and making them like interactive. So say we're on a website and you click a button and maybe something like pops up, out of it, or like it does like a little like, it kind of emphasizes what you're doing. Or I've been playing around with like, if you have like a little character, like your avatar or logo on your website, or it could have it in an app, but like as your mouse moves, like the like little eyes are like following along with it. So it's kind of infusing that like character piece with maybe something we don't always associate with character animation, because a lot of times we associate that with like the cartoons and the movies, but bringing in these little like personalized elements into apps and websites and stuff. And when you're talking about doing like animated like shows and things, it's like being able to also it streamlines some of the process a little bit too, and like the different programs you're using. So I've got experience in some probably like 3 or 4 different animation programs, so the different styles that you're pulling in has been kind of fun too, because it stretches your brain. Like obviously the foundation of what you're doing with animation is the same, but being able to kind of utilize different programs, different ideas, different styles, has been a fun creative challenge, and really stretches kind of how I view my work in the animated stuff that maybe like I was again very tunnel vision at the beginning of my career as I was going through like college especially, and what that looked like for me, and to be able to now like kind of expand what that looks like. Is it like even like an explainer video, because a lot of that's movement based too, and like drawing people in and explaining how things operate. And I'm finding it just being a really cool like accessibility thing. Really, it's like taking complex ideas in a lot of cases and kind of taking it and putting in something that's easy to show and explain to people who don't have that like intense background of whatever that topic of conversation is.
That's very true. And like just thinking about the fact you also do websites too, at least for
Mhm.
me, well, I have my symbol of my
Oh, I love
business.
that.
Like
Mhm.
I could see the rose heart coming up from the
Yeah.
mountains as kind of an
Yes, and being
idea.
able to like, yeah, animate those logos into place. So when they really like, that the eye-catching stuff is really what animation and movement is like, those quick hits in everyday life that just like, oh yeah, there's that. That's cool.
Well, we might for my website have a future collaboration. Not
Yes,
right
no,
now,
that would be a
though,
lot of
sadly,
fun.
but future collaboration.
Yes,
Because
we love
yeah,
that.
because that came to me as you were saying that. And then how are you reconnecting with yourself and how does that apply to your business?
I think, there's so much noise going on now in the world more than ever. Like I can't even, go on Instagram or even YouTube to like watch stuff without being kind of bombarded with some of the just like, how is this real life kind of news that we are getting out of our current administration here in the United States. And so like I found it's been helpful for me to disconnect from that. And like being out in nature is really grounding for me. But I live in Minnesota, which is right now we're like at, I don't know, 10 degrees and there's snow. So it's hard to always want to get out. But my partner and I have a husky who loves this weather so much. And so I always like thank him. I'm like, thank you for getting me out of the house and into just this fresh air, especially when it's sunny out. So he's kind of been like my encourager to get out in what when weather is not always like ideal for that. So I use that, even if it's just for like 2 minutes, just get out and kind of just like take a couple deep breaths and kind of settle like that. But also just making spaces in my mornings because I happen to be more of a night owl. So like my time at night is like more maybe active than other people. So my schedule thankfully allows me to kind of, not work your normal 9 to 5 per se. But the society's kind of built to honor that sort of schedule and timetable. So like I'll usually like get out of bed, go right into work, where like I'm trying to really like, okay, give myself at least a half an hour. I've been doing morning pages, which is off of a book called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. And that's really just taking, 10 minutes to just stream of conscious, just write whatever is going on in your head in the morning, 3 pages, call it a day. But I found that's really helpful too, because I like, even if you have nothing to say, just I have nothing, like I don't know what's going on. And all of a sudden your brain's like all of a sudden like, oh, I actually do have things to say. And I found that to be helpful with my creative expression too, because it's like opening up all of a sudden ideas that maybe I didn't know, I had chilling out in the back of my head or something. And so it's like I'm finding it a cool way to kind of connect with my inner self too. Outside of all the noise and stuff we are surrounded with. And so that's been a crucial thing for me in the last probably like month. I've started doing that, and just to kind of connect and ground and remember like my truth outside of maybe what the world is telling me my truth should be.
Mainly the administration, but
Yeah.
technically,
Yeah.
since I can't use the word cult because people seem to have
Yes.
not the right notion, technically cult and high control group are the same thing, but
Mm-hmm.
our current administration is a high control group and has already
Yeah,
2 out of 3 experts have already said that far before elections, far
mm-hmm.
before anything. It's already been determined, but sadly, there's not enough
It's
education out there on that.
yeah, hopefully one day, we can all look back and learn from this, even though like we should have been already learned from history as it kind of repeats itself in different forms. But yeah, it's crazy how quickly they're going about trying to erase identities and pretend that, trans people don't exist, the queer community doesn't exist. And it's sad to see, which is why I think it's so important that you're sharing other people's stories, right? You have like a bunch of queer people you're bringing on to share, and like being able to just say like we're not going anywhere, we're here. And like you mentioned before, like queer joy is so important. Like it's a form of resistance because they want us to be back in the closet, they want us to live in fear. But like obviously our physical safety and mental health is paramount. But how can we keep showing up in little ways be like, hey, I see what you're doing, but like we're here, we're not going anywhere, we exist. Get used to it, just I think too, like the more we show our joy, I think sometimes like it's a little scary for them too, because they seem like very unhappy people to be, constantly
Fully
going
agree.
after others. And so
Yes.
like I think the more we can show up as ourselves and be joyful, like that also encourages other people who are living, in maybe areas that they can't be as out and visible, but just to like see others out there, like yes, you are not alone. Yes, you deserve to be happy and to like feel that love and that acceptance and that support. And so like, yeah, it's at the end of the day, too, like being out and visible, it takes a lot of energy, like as too, showing up and sharing stories, that like taking those moments, whether it's right away in the morning, in the evening before you go to bed, or like anytime throughout the day when you feel your nervous system like kind of activate, to just stop, pause, take a couple deep breaths, and just kind of recenter a little bit. Because even something that small, I have found over the years, just it does enough to break that kind of like, oh my God, panic that you get.
That's very true. Well, and the fact that the, I guess, headlines that we've been getting purposely is supposed to go, oh no, is this real?
Yep.
You're supposed to be having that. Like even the whole paper straw thing that was supposed to be with me, it was just whatever. That's the stupidest ploy you've done yet.
Yeah. It's like I heard
Like, I
someone
don't
say
care.
the other day, like you can observe, but don't absorb all the stuff that's coming in. Because I
Yeah,
think like
because
it's
most of it's illegal anyways, and a lot of
Mhm.
stuff has been starting to be put in place that 1934 to 1942, I think it was, they didn't
Mhm.
have the same access we have to not only
Right.
information, and yes, YouTube also isn't a big happy LGBTQIA plus
Yep.
supporter, but they do at least let you still post stuff. That's
Mhm.
why I'm staying on even platforms that are technically against it, like Instagram.
Yep.
X I left a long time ago, but
Oh yeah. That's its own beast.
yeah, that one I'm not ever touching. That one's
Yep.
horrible. But at least for me, I want to
Mhm.
show my protest in staying on the platforms, at least some of them, not
Yes.
all of them, that are anti me.
Yep. No, I I agree with you there. Like obviously there are some like I mean we saw what happened with Twitter. Like it's X is such a weird thing. Like I'm always gonna call it Twitter. Like I'm sorry. I try my best, but
It
I
is
think
Twitter,
also
so hey.
it is, right? I mean, it's kind of like a little protest against Elon Musk himself. So, but I think like being able, like seeing what happened on that platform after it changed, from Twitter to X after, you really saw the algorithm shift and to have like kind of its own echo chamber on the far right. And then to see, the stuff that Meta's doing now and dropping all their DEI stuff and removing like all kind of censorship, unless you are speaking out against people like bullying, then like can't do that, which is funny to kind of watch. Sad, but I feel like if all of the minorities and oppressed people leave those spaces, then you're just creating more and more of these echo chambers. And so when we can stand in resistance in these spaces that don't feel safe all the time, that aren't supportive of us, we stay strong and we show up, and it's like we're not going to let you take over everything. We're going to stand our ground. And yes, some people need to leave those platforms, and that's fine too. And so I think there's a balance. Like yes, some people go, take care of themselves, and some of it is just like a morality thing, like their morals, like I don't want to be involved in a platform like that, and that's 100% fair. And that's something that I feel like I've talked to a lot of people grappling with too, like what do we do, because like social media, like a lot of the places we hang out are owned by people who are actively working like against our communities and our existence. And it's like, okay, why are we giving them our time, energy, money? Good question. But also, why would we let them win so easily? And it's like until they kick me off, I'm going to keep showing up for the people who are still on those platforms, who still need to see us. And I hope that people who maybe have softer kind of anti-queer thoughts might be persuaded to by seeing us just show up as the human beings that we are. And it's like a quiet sort of resistance in a sense to the quietly changing of minds. It's just being there, being ourselves. It doesn't have to be like this big protest, right? I can
Yeah.
just show up and be like, hey, here are my rabbits. Like, cool. Like, I'm taking my dog out for a walk. I'm just like you, like
Yeah,
sort of thing.
exactly. And also showing people, because they seem to not have a understanding that most of the media out there isn't gay. It's not
Mhm.
LGBTQIA plus. We have some few actors that aren't that well
Yep.
known. You
Hmm.
rarely hear about them. If you do, it's only through social medias that are LGBTQ plus
Hmm.
related or towards, period, like
Yep.
them. That's one of them that is towards only LGBTQIA plus. And then there are some shows, some games, but again, it's not as popular and it's
Yep.
hard to find in the first place. And we need more push for media and other places to go, yeah, we exist and it's okay. Like Owl House was amazing. I loved Owl
Yes.
House so much. And Hazbin
That's
Hotel is
right.
great too. Just the fact that it's technically hell doesn't really help the case,
You're
but
right.
Hazbin Hotel is
Right.
amazing.
But yeah, all these things that like are just, normalizing in a sense, that existence and, being that kind of safe space to land and things to watch and listen to, like the more those show up and the more we support that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully acts as a signal to other companies that, hey, we've got big spending power, we've got big, like, our, attention is currency, right? So if we take our attention on those things, hopefully people like pay attention and be like, okay, they're still here,
And
we're
also
not going anywhere.
buy
Yep, yes.
LGBTQI plus. You'll see Hannah's stuff down below.
Yeah.
Check it out. But
Exactly.
yeah,
Yep.
glad we got to hash that one out too.
Yes. I don't know, like, I don't know where that one came from, but
Funny enough, somehow in each of my interviews, somehow we always end up there anyway. But
I mean, it makes
everyone
sense.
has
It's
similar,
current.
what?
It's like it's current events, top of mind for people
Yeah.
right now.
Exactly. And our voices need to get heard. Yes, I'm
Mhm.
fighting the algorithm, so do keep in mind the more you share, the better. So everyone
Yep.
listening, more you share, the better.
Yep.
Share, like, whether it's
All
your
the things.
friend, whoever it is, just share it with someone.
And even like on your public social channels if you have them, because you don't know who maybe will come across it too that needs to hear these stories, that Jessi is sharing, and being able to just uplift and support, a variety of voices.
Let's see. I think I already did that. Okay. Well, we can actually move on to where can potential clients connect with you?
Yeah, so my website is hannahstringer.com, and that's where I kind of have a brief overview of everything that I'm doing. It's kind of always constantly being updated as I am working to like put more of my like examples and stuff on there, and kind of really as I'm learning things, kind of share things there. But I'm most active on Instagram at Hannah Stringer. I've actually been really loving Threads, even though that is also a Meta platform. But I found just this really, I don't know if it's just how I curated, my feed there, but a lot of small queer businesses, artists, like it's just like a really warm, fuzzy, accepting place that I've cultivated there, and engaging too. So I'm also on there just kind of throwing out random thoughts and ideas and sharing things. So those are my main platforms that I frequent the most. And I have a small TikTok kind of growing, but like I don't use it as much. I scroll a lot, don't necessarily post a lot.
I do doom scrolling mainly, and
Yes.
I put little clips from these interviews on TikTok. It doesn't get a
Nice.
lot, but at least some people are seeing it.
Yep. Any little bit helps, I find. You never know who's kind of lurking too. Like that's something I found like over the last handful of years, like as I've been showing up more on social media and like sharing what I'm doing, whether it was like the coaching I did earlier or now like helping with the creative aspects of running a business. It's just you don't know who's watching because not everybody's gonna comment or like, but like it'll be like months later and it's like, oh, I've been like following along with you for the last 3 months. Like, I'm really curious now to learn more. It's like, oh, I didn't even know, So it's like, or even like, friends of mine that like I don't know if they're paying attention. Also be like, I've really enjoyed the things that you're sharing. Like, you don't know whose lives you're touching just by putting out things, And I mean, yeah, in this day and age, like it's always about going viral and how many eyeballs, but it really is, the small but mighty. You don't know what, even if you're touching a single person and changing their day, I think it's worth, putting stuff out and sharing stuff that is meaningful to you and that is uplifting. So yeah.
Very true. Well, thank you so much for being here, Hannah. And
Yes, thank you for having me on.
if people could leave a comment, it helps the algorithm at least push the video up, even if it's just a hi or I like the video.
Or questions that you may have that popped up as you're listening to us chat.
Oh yeah, that too.
Mhm.
And then if Hannah is on YouTube, I bet that she
Yep.
can reply to any questions you have for her personally.
For sure.
And please like and subscribe embrace your truth, tell your story. You have a story to tell, I have a story to tell. So let's tell our stories. Till next Saturday. Peace. Bye guys.